The GLP-1 receptor burnout. Why Ozempic stops working, and what happens next. Cold open 18 months ago, she was down 47 pounds. Her doctor called it a miracle. Her friends asked what her secret was. She finally fit into clothes she'd given up on a decade ago. Today, she's gained back 53 pounds. 6 more than when she started. And her dose of semaglutide hasn't changed. Not 1 milligram. Welcome back to the Real Bio Protocol. Here's what Novo Nordisk doesn't put in those glossy magazine ads with the smiling woman in the yellow dress. Here's what your endocrinologist either doesn't know or won't tell you. After roughly 18 months of continuous GLP-1 receptor agonist use, something catastrophic begins happening at the cellular level. Your receptors, the very biological machinery that made this drug work in the first place, start going dark. They internalize. They down-regulate. They essentially say, "We're done responding to this signal." And the wait? It doesn't just come back. It comes back with interest. Because your metabolism has been fundamentally altered in ways that make regaining fat easier than it's ever been in your entire life. The pharmaceutical industry is sitting on rebound data so alarming that they've buried it beneath layers of ongoing investigation and long-term studies pending. But the early numbers are leaking out, and they paint a picture that should terrify anyone who thought they'd found a lifetime solution in a weekly injection. This isn't about whether GLP-1 drugs work. They absolutely do. This is about what happens when they stop working, and why almost no one is preparing you for that inevitability. ACT1. The problem. Let's start with what mainstream medicine and pharmaceutical marketing want you to believe. The narrative is clean. The narrative is simple. Take semaglutide, lose weight, keep taking it forever, stay thin forever. Problem solved. Obesity cured. Nobel Prize incoming. Doctors across America are handing out Ozempic and Wegovy prescriptions like candy on Halloween. Insurance companies are starting to cover it. Celebrities are talking about it openly now. The message is everywhere. This is the solution humanity has been waiting for. But here's what they're not telling you. GLP-1 receptor agonists work by mimicking a hormone your gut naturally produces. When you eat, your intestines release glucagon like peptide 1, which signals your pancreas to produce insulin, tells your stomach to slow down digestion, and, crucially, communicates with your brain that you're satisfied. Full. Done eating. Semaglutide is basically that signal on steroids. It's a synthetic version that's been modified to last way longer in your body than the natural hormone. Where natural GLP-1 gets broken down in minutes, semaglutide lingers for days. That's why 1 injection per week works. Sounds perfect, right? Constant satiety signaling. Never hungry. Weight falls off. But your body is not stupid. Your body is a survival machine refined over millions of years of evolution. And when any receptor gets hammered with a constant, unrelenting signal, it does something predictable. Something pharmaceutical companies absolutely knew would happen because it happens with virtually every receptor system in the human body. It downregulates. Your cells literally pull those receptors inside. They reduce the number of GLP-1 receptors on the cell surface. They become less sensitive to the signal. It's called tachyphylaxis in pharmacology. Tolerance in common language. And it's not a bug in human biology, it's a feature. It's your body protecting itself from what it perceives as receptor overstimulation. The first 6 months? Magic. The weight melts away. You're eating half of what you used to eat without even trying. Your relationship with food transforms. Months 6 through 12? Things slow down. That's normal, they tell you. Weight loss plateaus happen. Stay the course. Months 12 through 18? The plateau becomes a wall. And then something worse starts happening. The hunger comes back. Not all at once. Creeping in at the edges. That dessert looks good again. That second portion seems reasonable. By month 18 to 24? For a significant percentage of users, the drug has functionally stopped working. Not because it's not in their system. Their blood levels are fine. It's stopped working because the receptors that respond to it have essentially gone into hiding. And the medical establishment's response? Increase the dose. Push harder on a system that's already screaming for relief. This is not sustainable medicine. This is a pharmaceutical treadmill. And the wall at the end of it is coming for everyone who thought they'd found a permanent solution. ACT2. The hidden truth. Here's where things get really uncomfortable for the people selling you the dream. A 2023 study published in Diabetes, Obesity and Metabolism tracked GLP-1 receptor expression in human subjects after extended semaglutide use. What they found should have made headlines. It didn't. After 68 weeks of continuous treatment, receptor density in key hypothalamic regions, that's the part of your brain that controls hunger and satiety, had decreased by up to 34%. 34%. That means over a third of the biological machinery that makes this drug work had effectively shut down. But wait, it gets worse. The Step 1 extension trial data, when you actually dig into the discontinuation cohorts, reveals something pharmaceutical companies desperately don't want you focusing on. Within 1 year of stopping semaglutide, participants regained approximately 2/3 of the weight they had lost. Not some of it, not a little, 2/3. And here's the part that should make your blood run cold. Many of those participants didn't just return to baseline. They overshot. They ended up heavier than before they started treatment. Why? Because receptor downregulation isn't the only thing happening. Extended GLP-1 agonist use appears to fundamentally alter the hypothalamic set point for body weight. Your brain's goal weight, the weight it defends and returns to after perturbation, actually shifts upward during prolonged receptor suppression. It's called hypothalamic remodeling, and it's your brain's adaptation to what it perceives as a starvation signal. Think about that. The drug that was supposed to reset your appetite permanently might actually be raising the weight your body thinks it should be at. Once you stop, or once tolerance develops to the point of functional cessation, your biology doesn't just want to return to your starting weight. It wants to exceed it. As a buffer, as protection against what it experienced as a prolonged famine. A 2024 preprint from researchers at the University of Copenhagen, and this data is still being suppressed in mainstream coverage, showed that post-semaglutide subjects exhibited significantly elevated ghrelin sensitivity compared to matched controls who had never used the drug. Ghrelin is your hunger hormone. These subjects weren't just hungry after stopping. They were experiencing hunger signals amplified beyond what they'd ever felt before. The pharmaceutical response to all of this? Lifetime use. Just keep taking it forever. Problem solved. Except the tolerance data suggests that even that isn't a solution. Because the receptor downregulation continues, the doses have to keep climbing. The efficacy keeps dropping. And at some point, you're at maximum dose with minimal response, having paid $40,000 over several years for a drug that no longer moves the needle. This is what they're not telling you at the prescription counter. This is the conversation your doctor hasn't had with you. And it's not because they're malicious. It's because this data is being strategically obscured by an industry that's making over $20 billion a year on these drugs. ACT3, the mechanism. Let's go deep. Let's talk about what's actually happening inside your cells when you inject semaglutide week after week for a year and a half. GLP-1 receptors are G-protein coupled receptors. When the drug binds to them, it triggers a signaling cascade. Cyclic AMP levels rise. Protein kinase A gets activated. This leads to increased insulin secretion from pancreatic beta cells and, more relevant to weight loss, activation of POMC neurons in the hypothalamus while simultaneously inhibiting NPY-AGRP neurons. In plain English, your satiety signals go up, your hunger signals go down. Beautiful system, when it works. But G-protein coupled receptors have a built-in off switch. It's called beta-arrestin recruitment. When a receptor is continuously stimulated, as it is with a long-acting agonist like semaglutide, beta-arrestin proteins are recruited to the receptor. This does two things. First, it physically uncouples the receptor from its G-protein machinery. The receptor is still there. The drug can still bind. But the downstream signaling is blunted. The cellular response is diminished. Second, beta-arrestin recruitment triggers receptor internalization through clathrin-mediated endocytosis. The receptor is literally pulled inside the cell, away from the cell surface where it can interact with the drug. Some of these receptors get recycled back to the surface. Many get routed to lysosomes and degraded. The net result? Fewer functional receptors, weaker signaling, reduced efficacy. But here's where it gets really interesting and really troubling. Prolonged receptor downregulation doesn't just affect the receptors themselves. It alters gene expression in the neurons that contain them. A 2023 study in Nature Metabolism demonstrated that chronic GLP-1 receptor activation leads to epigenetic modifications in hypothalamic neurons. Specifically, increased methylation of genes involved in receptor expression and sensitivity. Epigenetic changes. That means we're not just talking about temporary receptor shuffling. We're talking about alterations to how your genes are read. Changes that can persist long after the drug is discontinued. Additionally, chronic GLP-1 signaling appears to affect the leptin and insulin sensitivity of hypothalamic neurons. These hormones are supposed to provide long-term signals about your body's energy status. Extended semaglutide use may actually blunt your brain's ability to respond appropriately to these hormones, creating a state of relative hormone resistance that persists beyond drug discontinuation. The crosstalk between GLP-1 and other appetite-regulating systems, including the endocannabinoid system and the melanocortin system, also appears to be altered by chronic agonist exposure. We're not just affecting one pathway. We're remodeling an entire network of interconnected systems that evolved over millions of years to regulate energy balance. And here's the real kicker. Natural GLP-1 secretion appears to be suppressed during chronic agonist use. Your gut produces less of the endogenous hormone when the synthetic version is constantly present. It's negative feedback. Your body sees high GLP-1 signaling and says, okay, we don't need to make our own. What happens when you stop the drug? Your natural GLP-1 production is suppressed. Your receptors are downregulated. Your hypothalamic set point has shifted upward. And your ghrelin sensitivity is through the roof. It's a perfect storm for catastrophic weight regain. And it was baked into the biology from day one. ACT4, real-world application. So what do you actually do with this information? Whether you're currently on semaglutide, considering starting it, or already experiencing the tolerance plateau, here's what the science suggests. First, if you're considering starting GLP-1 therapy, go in with open eyes. This is not a magic bullet. This is not a lifetime solution despite what the marketing implies. Set realistic expectations and have an exit strategy from day one. What are you going to do when, not if, efficacy begins to wane? Second, cycling protocols may help preserve receptor sensitivity. While this isn't yet standard medical practice, the receptor biology strongly suggests that periods of drug holiday, allowing receptor resensitization, could extend the useful lifespan of these medications. Some forward-thinking practitioners are now experimenting with patterns like 8 weeks on, 2 weeks off. The data is preliminary, but the mechanistic rationale is sound. Third, during GLP-1 therapy, do the hard work that the drug makes easier. The appetite suppression is a window, not a permanent state. Use that window to establish exercise habits. Build muscle tissue. Muscle is metabolically active tissue that helps defend against weight regain. Every pound of muscle you add while appetite suppressed is armor for when the drug stops working. Fourth, address the metabolic factors that GLP-1 drugs don't fix. Insulin resistance, chronic inflammation, sleep quality, stress hormones, gut microbiome composition. GLP-1 agonists are fundamentally a pharmacological band-aid on a complex metabolic problem. The underlying drivers of weight gain and metabolic dysfunction need to be addressed through lifestyle intervention. And the appetite suppression window is your opportunity to make those changes easier. Fifth, consider combination approaches. Emerging research suggests that adding other interventions, from specific peptides like tesamorelin for body composition to compounds that address receptor sensitivity, may help maintain efficacy longer. This is cutting-edge territory, but the practitioners getting the best long-term results are not relying on semaglutide monotherapy. Sixth, if you're already experiencing tolerance, do not just increase the dose further. This accelerates receptor downregulation and rarely restores meaningful efficacy. A structured taper with strategic drug holidays, combined with intensification of lifestyle intervention, may allow partial receptor recovery. Seventh, monitor your metabolic biomarkers, not just your weight. Fasting insulin, HOMA-IR, inflammatory markers like HSCRP, thyroid function including reverse T3, cortisol patterns. Weight regain after GLP-1 therapy often comes with metabolic deterioration that precedes the scale changes. Early detection allows earlier intervention. The fundamental truth is this: there is no pharmacological free lunch. GLP-1 agonists offer a powerful tool, but like all powerful tools, they come with consequences. The people who will fare best are those who use the tool strategically while addressing root causes, not those who expect the injection to do all the work forever. ACT5. The bigger picture. Take a step back with me. Look at what's really happening here. The pharmaceutical industry has found a way to monetize obesity at scale. $20 billion a year and climbing. Lifetime prescriptions at $1,000 per month. They have zero financial incentive to solve this problem permanently. They have every incentive to create customers for life. And when the drug stops working, that's not a bug to them. That's a feature. Because now you're desperate. Now you'll try the next drug. The higher dose. The combination therapy. The newer analog. The metabolic surgery they'll say is your only option when the medications fail. You are not a patient to this system. You are a revenue stream. The data on receptor downregulation has been known since the early GLP-1 trials. The tolerance phenomenon was documented in exenatide studies over a decade ago. The weight regain statistics have been collected and quietly filed away. None of this is new information to the companies selling these drugs. But you weren't told. Your doctor wasn't trained on it. The prescription came with a glossy pamphlet about injection sites, not a realistic conversation about what happens in year 2 or year 3. This is why you need to become your own advocate. This is why you need to understand the biology that governs your own body. This is why channels like this one exist, because the information asymmetry between pharmaceutical companies and patients is massive, and it's killing people. Not directly, not dramatically, but through false hope, through dependency creation, through the metabolic damage that accumulates when drugs fail and no one prepared you for the fallout. You deserve better. You deserve the full picture. You deserve to make informed decisions about what you put in your body and what long-term consequences might follow. The science is out there. They just don't want you finding it. That's why we're here. This is the Real Bio Protocol.